Hey, Stacey David here with the Tales of a Gearhead podcast. Now, what is this? Well, it's a podcast that covers everything automotive, everything mechanical, everything that's just cool about the automotive lifestyle. And since that's just about everything, you're going to love it. Let's get rolling. Hey, we just want to wish everybody a happy new year. It is officially 2025, the year that songs were written about. And here it is. It's here. We hope that you guys had a good holiday season, that you survived, didn't eat too much, and you had a little bit of time to wrench on your vehicles. And we are already in the studio. We are shooting stuff for the next season. So it's going to be awesome. Now, some of the things that we got coming up this season, I've got a 59 of Chevy Apache pickup that we're going to be rolling in and showing you whether you should use original parts or reproductions and going through that. The stunt double will be coming back, making an appearance, and I'll have some special guests with that as well. Look for the cheetah to come back and make an appearance. Been wanting to take that down the road for a long time. Also, there'll be shows on Mustang suspension. There'll be some Jeep upgrades. As always, we're doing stuff on new vehicles, old vehicles, classics, strange things. The Swamp Sprite will be back. So don't miss any of it. We got some great stuff coming up. All right, for today's podcast, we have someone who's very special to me. We have one of the premier voiceover artists out there, and people might be thinking, voiceover artist? Why do you have a voiceover artist on here? Well, because if you've done any film or television, and those of you that are out there doing your own content on YouTube, you realize that a voiceover is pretty important, and that is the voice that's speaking as you're seeing video. And this next particular person, not only is she quite a voiceover artist, she's quite an accomplished musician, and she's a car girl. And her name is Talon David. Now, you might recognize the last name. It's very similar to mine, as in the very same. Yes, Talon David is my eldest daughter. And a lot of people have wondered about Catherine and I and our kids and stuff. We have two daughters. And we don't talk about them much because they're doing their own thing, and we want to let them do that. But when things cross over, it makes perfect sense to have them on here. So, Talon, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Dad.
Now, the biggest question that people are going to have, they're going to, okay, what was it like to grow up with me as your dad?
Well,
so give us some stories there.
Picture it. You're waking up, you're 10 years old. It's maybe like 8 a.m. on a Saturday. You're thinking, I'm going to lie in today. I'm going to sleep in. But instead, you get the shriek of an electric guitar with the amp up to 11 and you're just flying away, ripping. And that was always on a Saturday. Those are our memories. And I just thought everyone dealt with that.
Yes, it was. It was time to get up.
Yes.
How about cars? What do you remember with cars? What's your earliest car memory?
Well, okay. Let's see.
Because I had you on the set of trucks when you were a baby.
Oh, gosh. And, I remember a small little room that I played in while you were doing your thing. And I did. I remembered thinking, wow, I am with Dad at work. And all I remember is the carpet. Because when you're that young, all you're doing is looking down.
The carpet's amazing.
Yeah, the carpet was phenomenal. And I knew, ooh, this is it. As far as cars go, I mean, the little red wagon was,
That was my daily driver at the time. Do
you
remember?
Daily driver. Mom had the Highlander. So we had the Toyota Highlander and the little red wagon as our extremes of vehicular transport. And being taken to swim practice in the little red wagon felt pretty legendary.
Do you remember the time that I parked illegally at Logan's Roadhouse because I could?
No.
I pulled up on the little hill, and you guys were like, wow. And I was like, that's because...
You always pulled up on the hill. I didn't think that was illegal. Is that illegal?
Well, it wasn't a parking spot. But that's what you can do when you have four-wheel drive and big tires.
Yes. I remember you doing that at church. We were going to this huge church and there was never any parking. And suddenly the little red wagon would be perched up like a mountain goat on the hill. I'm like, oh, yep, there we are.
Do you remember when I blew the engine up in it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. You're like, okay, we're making a stop at the old abandoned Jack in the Box. That's my only memory of that like fast food chain.
Yeah, those of you that don't know, the Little Red Wagon, I had been testing with it. I've been doing some stuff with Royal Purple and seeing how long I could go between oil changes and stuff like that. The motor was old on it and it needed to be replaced, and it had 200,000 plus miles on it. And one day it let go, man, and it let go great. It blew a hole inside of the block.
There was smoke.
There was smoke, oil everywhere. I have one of the bent connecting rods hanging up on the wall. It did itself proud. It was awesome.
Oh, that reminds me. One of my friends reached out to me back from that time. They were our neighbors, the Burtons.
Yeah.
And she remembers riding with us, like getting picked up from church in the Little Red Wagon. Yeah. And you'd be like messing with Ayla and I. And then we'd try to like push back and you'd go, don't mess with the driver. And I had forgotten about that. I was like, wow, that was such an era. Don't mess with the driver.
Don't mess with the driver.
It was the ultimate trump card.
Don't mess with the driver. I can mess with you, but you can't mess with the driver.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorites over the years of the cars that I built and stuff, or special memories?
The first favorite I had was Crazy Horse because it was purple, and that was, I think, the first one I got up in. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we had a picture with it and everything. Yeah. I had the horse on the side, and it, I don't know, felt
And I remember taking you guys to school, picking you up at school in the rat roaster and putting you in the rumble seat.
The rat roaster was really special, too, because I remember when that was just like sitting in sort of the storage area of the old shop.
Yeah, kind of like this chassis sitting right beside us.
Yes, just like that. And so we got to see it become what it was. Yeah. And you pick the color, and we kind of got, say, and like, oh, is that a good candy apple? And so it was fun.
Now, a lot of people will probably wonder, what kind of cars do you like? Because I like everything. So, cars, trucks, sports cars, hot rods,
sports cars,
whatever. So, yeah, what do you like? What is your favorite?
Oh, well, I mean, I love everything you're doing on the Cheetah.
Yeah.
But you got rid of my favorite car, which was the D-Type Jag that I wanted you to do something on or give to me, bequeath to me.
Yes.
At some point. But yeah, anything low to the ground and swoopy really makes me happy.
So if you could have any car right now, what would it be?
If
money was no object, what car would you have?
I'd get myself a Maserati.
A Maserati?
I don't really know what, models they have, but I'm like, anything Maserati.
You just like to say Maserati.
I do, and I like the little Trident. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
But what I have seen is great.
Maserati's a good car.
Like a matte black would be just awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Be like out of Avengers.
All right, let's get to the voiceover audiobooks. A lot of people may not realize that you are one of the premier audiobook people that are out there. How many audiobooks have you done now?
Now, it's about 110.
110 audiobooks.
In the last 3.5 years.
In 3.5 years. Okay, fill people in. Okay, because most people think when you do an audiobook, you just sit and read a book.
Uh-huh.
Okay. What is the misconception that people have? What goes into doing an audiobook? First of all, how many times do you read the book?
Over the course of working on it. So I have to read it to prep it.
Yeah.
And it's not just like speed reading through. What I have to do is I highlight every character voice in a different color.
Okay.
So that way when I do eventually narrate it and record it, I know what characters are coming up.
Yeah.
And I have like sort of vocal qualities that usually go with a different color. So like lavender is usually a light female voice like this. Yeah. And I'll keep it like that. And then like a dark army green is like a really rough guy voice that I'll take here. And, and so
So you do the guy and the girl voices.
Oh, yeah. It's everything. It's a 10-hour one-woman show sometimes.
Well, and another thing that makes you really unique, and thus why you're in such demand, is you do different accents, correct?
Oh, yeah.
So how many accents can you do?
Oh, I like to say I can do any accent because here's the thing with audiobooks, another misconception is like I don't think of it as acting necessarily as much as presentation. It's more storytelling than acting. And some people could be like, oh, that's the same thing. Acting is when you kind of become a character. You try to like take on their skin.
Yeah.
Whereas I see audiobook narration as more like you're sitting around the campfire telling a story to people who don't have a book in front of them, obviously. And so it's like you're trying to create the whole world.
Yeah.
So you can't get too deep into one character, or you can't keep that like big picture view that you need,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So with the accents, because also you want them to be intelligible, and sometimes if you go really authentic with an accent, you can't
Like
understand
French.
it. Yeah, French, or even if you went with like a real Southern, and it's like here, and it's like, oh yeah, I just want to do that. You know, a lot of people can't understand that.
Yeah.
So you have to pare it down a little. So what I do when I'm like looking at accents to learn a new accent, I try to figure out a few key things about the accent. Like, what do they do with the R consonant? You
Yeah.
can tell a lot from an accent. Like a French, like that. It's like as soon as you start adding a little bit of that
Yeah.
into the speech, then it starts already sounding French, even though I'm only really fixing the ow.
Yeah.
So that, and then cadence is another thing that you can pay attention to. And yeah, vowels. So it's kind of just picking out little things that give the listener the key, oh, that's an accent.
Yes. And a lot of people don't realize that there are so many different, just like American accents. How about English accents? So give us an example, okay? So like a standard London, England accent, what would it be?
Well, so an RP accent is here.
Yeah.
And this is what, if I was to speak normally in the UK, this is what I would go with.
Yeah.
A chavvy accent is more here, and I always like to think of it like I have really big lips. If I have really big lips, then I could do the London accent, because
Yeah.
everyone happens to have really big lips who speaks like this. So this would be more of a London accent. And so
Okay.
we take it more to an RP. And then a posh is like this.
Yes.
It's more airy, and you add a little bit more
A little
swoop.
foppish.
Yes, foppish, like the Scarlet Pimpernel.
Yeah. So how about like the Beatles' Liverpool and stuff? Or
Yeah,
Cockney?
the Liverpool accent, I think, has a lot to do with the cadence.
Yeah.
Because if you listen to the Beatles, they're very monotone.
Yeah.
And then they go down like that, and they only go between these two pitches.
Yeah.
Down, 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 down. And so then that kind of gives you the Liverpool accent. And then a Cockney would be more of that kind of London accent.
Yeah.
You just add less of the consonants. It's like this.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, yeah. Yeah, man.
Now, how about things like German or Russian? Yeah.
I love doing a Russian accent. I remember, okay, this is a little bit of a throwback, but my first audiobook experience was actually when you narrated an audiobook for Danny's book, The Last Rock and Roll Show. And I was there for one of the sessions because you needed a little girl voice.
Yeah.
And I remember you doing a Russian accent. And so that's always been the one that I'm like, oh yeah.
Did a Russian accent.
I have to do a Russian accent. I have to just keep that in our legacy as the Davids that can do Russian accents.
All you have to do is get vodka right. Once you get
Yes,
vodka right, you got the rest of the accent. And a little bit of New York thrown
A
in.
little bit of New York.
Oh, they don't realize, one of the things, do you remember when you were young, we would pull into the fast food places and I would look around and say, okay, everybody is from Australia. And we would all try to talk.
It really failed halfway through every time.
Because Catherine would be like, I can't do it, I can't do it.
She'd be like, I'm scared. And she'd get really high-pitched. Oh, no.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, where can people find your books? If people want to hear some of the Talon David books, what is the place they go?
Most of them should be available anywhere that you can listen to audiobooks, but the main one, of course, is Audible through Amazon and iTunes. Yeah. Available there.
And can they go to your website and find them?
Yeah, my website has kind of highlights because there's so many of them now.
Yeah.
God bless. I've been very blessed with this. But I have a list of my favorite titles, and there are links to them there.
And so what's your website?
Website is www.talondavid.com, just my name.
talondavid.com. Very good. Okay, let's talk about music. Now, you're an accomplished musician. You didn't have a chance with that between Catherine and I.
No.
And so the question is, now, Talon, where can they get your music at? Your website?
Through my website, but if they are subscribed to streaming platforms, it's available on all of those as well.
And you've just finished a Christmas album. You have 2 studio albums. You're working on another. And you write pretty much all of your own songs, correct?
I do, yes. Writer, producer, engineer, arranger, all of the things.
How many songs do you think you've written?
I've written about 250 now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot. You've been writing a long time.
Yeah.
and you've had a lot of success with it.
10 years. It's been 10 years since I wrote my first song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so any advice for people that are wanting to be a singer-songwriter? Don't do it, Rambo!
No, I use it as a way to recycle things that happened in my life into a positive way.
Yeah.
And so I think just use what doesn't feel good and make it feel good.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people, I haven't said this yet, Talon lives in London. You moved to the UK how long ago?
2.5 years ago now? Yeah.
So the crazy thing is she's walking around in London talking in an English accent.
I don't mean to. I really don't mean to.
It's hard not to.
It's hard.
It's
and
like moving to the South. All of a sudden you sound like you're from the South.
I have found that they do respond better to it. Like, say you're walking down the street and the streets are busy in London, as they always are, and you're like, I want to get by this person, and they're not moving. And instead of going, excuse me, pardon me, like you would in the U.S., which they just don't hear for some reason, if you say, sorry, then they'll move. Yeah. They'll be like, oh, yes, sorry. Yes.
Well, you're not one of those blasted Americans.
No, I try not to be.
No, that's really good. So as far as anything new coming out music-wise, now, of course, the big question people will have is what kind of style are you? How would you position your style? Because I think you're kind of a pop jazz sort of thing. A very interesting. You have a lot of musical theater background.
Yes.
And so what kind of music will they expect when they listen to your stuff?
There's a new sort of genre becoming a thing called cinematic pop.
Yeah.
And I would say that I fall within that realm.
Definitely.
Where it's very kind of orchestral, but mine's more vocal led. Like when you think of cinematic pop, you would think of like Jake and maybe a bit of Sabrina Carpenter's new stuff, but it's like where you have a lot of strings and maybe a beat there, but the vocal's really close to the mic.
Yeah.
And I do the string arrangements with my voice most of the time.
Yeah.
So I do that, and then I love jazz chords, so that's also an element that I have to have at least once.
Yeah. Now, how did that come about? Because, I mean, you grew up listening to me, and the house was full of CCR and Leonard Skinner and everything else. So how did that musical style come around?
Well, I think it was a marrying of both. So Mom was listening to her Golden Age musical theater stuff, and then you had the Journey albums and the Eagles and Kenny Loggins in the car. And so I was like, well, how does this come together? How does this come together? And then I started getting into jazz because it has that element of the standard. A lot of musical theater songs are done in a jazz way, and then a lot of the rockers use jazz in just their improvisational styles and everything. And so, I went to university and got into jazz there.
Yes, and yes, she's in her jazz phase now. We're trying to pull her out of it.
No, I think I'm past jazz, the thick jazz phase that I was in.
And you just finished a tour with Neil Morse.
I did. Yeah. Well, so we have one more performance in London, actually. And Neil Morse is a prolific progressive rock artist.
Yeah. Which very talented
Progressive
guy.
Rock is an interesting genre.
Yeah.
It's like jazz style and concept meets rock music.
Yeah.
So 2 drum kits on the stage. You've got 4 or 5 different guitars and keyboards.
It's awesome. Yeah.
It's phenomenal. And then I get to just like scream, yell, belt at the audience and, stuff I don't always do in my own stuff. So it's kind of nice to get that perspective.
Well, with all the stuff that we've talked about, obviously you're a very creative person, just like your sister Ayla is.
Oh, you think?
And so the question is, do you ever have any desire to build a car? I mean, you have all the creative aspects. And if you would, what would it be?
There is something really cool about having the information in your head to just like look at that car and know exactly what needs to happen.
Yeah.
And I love puzzles. I love putting things together.
Oh, I know.
So I don't know, maybe potentially I'd want it to be like that small sports car style though, where it was mainly probably just like an engine and wheels.
Yeah.
Real basic. But that would be cool to then finish it and be like, oh man, I put this together, you know?
It is. It's a very cool feeling.
But I can't give you a specific because it would really have to.
So in other words, you're waiting for me to do it.
Whatever I could do.
And then like, oh, Daddy, can I please have the McLaren?
It's not my natural gifting to look at vehicles and be like, I need to know, I need to get up in there, you know? It's not my gifting, but it does interest me on like a cerebral level.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Listen, thanks for dropping by. You're welcome to come by anytime.
Oh, thanks.
And once again, where can people find your stuff?
On my website.
And what is that?
TalonDavid.com.
TalonDavid.com. TALON.
TALON.
Yes.
Just like the claw.
Yes. Thank you for being on here, and we'll have you back on.
Okay. Thanks, Dad. It's been fun.
If you like cars, if you like coffee, you're gonna love GEARZ coffee cars. Because in each pack, you'll find a special blend of rich, robust coffee to get your blood pumping, as well as a collectible cartoon sticker and matching photo card of some of the wildest vehicles Stacey has built or featured over the years. Collect the whole series and be sure to keep an eye out for the ultra-rare Strange Brew card that are added to random packages to keep things interesting. It's GEARZ coffee cars, the best bean on the car scene. A successful automotive project takes planning and organization, but instead of using an old tablet or notebook, there's the GEARZ Deluxe Project Planning Book. This was designed to help you lay out a project, the parts, the tools, costs, and keep it organized with colored tabs, a pouch for receipts, and even a place to attach photos. If you decide to sell the vehicle, it serves as a complete history of what's been done. If you have a project or plan on starting one, the GEARZ Project Planning Book is the best way to lay it out and make it happen.
All right, this next question, it's not really a question. This is a comment that comes in from Bruce, and it's just great. It's great to get these kind of comments. He says, hey, Stacey, on a recent podcast, you talked about organizing and maintaining your drill bit collection, and that got me thinking. He says, I've been playing with cars for about 50 years and have a large drill bit collection and a ton of extra bits. He said, it's a pitiful collection, but he said, after I heard your advice, I threw about half those drill bits away because they were old and beat up, and supposedly I was going to sharpen them one day. And he said, I ordered what I needed to make my index complete. He said, my drill drawer has never looked better, and thank you for the advice. Well, Bruce, you're welcome, man. I'm glad that helped out. I'm telling you, man, almost every mechanic I know has got that collection of old drill bits and old saw blades and stuff, and half of them are chipped and nubbed off and broken, and we're just pack rats. We don't want to throw anything away because, you know, eventually we're going to get around to sharpening that or reusing it, or I might be able to get some sort of use out of it some way, and eventually that stuff starts to clutter up your shop to where you can't find the good stuff. So, as you can see, keeping things organized, getting rid of that old stuff is a good thing to do. It just takes some willpower. Good job, Bruce. Thank you for the letter. Okay, this next question comes from Dan. Dan says, hey, Stacey, been a big fan since I was a kid. Man, I appreciate that, man. He says, I am building a 69 Ford F100. He said, I put a 4-link in the rear, and I swapped out the front cross member for a Crown Vic front suspension. He said, this is a pretty serious level 4 build. That is awesome. Now, see, guys, I've talked about before the levels that we put together. Now that he's called it a level 4, I know exactly what he's involved in. I know pretty much what he's spending, all of that stuff. That goes so far to help us communicate. So that's awesome. Now, to go further, he says he's got a big block in it, a 521 Ford that he pulled out, and he's got a T56 behind it. Man, he's got a nice drivetrain going in here. He says, I've done a lot of the things that you did on the V8 Interceptor. That's fantastic. He says, I'm at a point where I need to order a drive shaft, but my bed is not on the truck. Should I wait for the weight of the bed to be on the truck before measuring for the drive shaft, or can I do it the way it is? Great question, Dan. Yes, you do need to have the bed on. You want the truck at ride height when you measure for the drive shaft. That way it's going to be right in the sweet spot when that thing starts to run down the road. Now, if you want to measure for it now, what I would suggest is weigh the bed or get a good idea what that bed weighs and put some weight down on your frame and get that suspension to sink down to ride height, and then you can measure for the drive shaft. Same thing with any front suspension stuff. Everything needs to be down at ride height when you're measuring, especially for a drive shaft. So you're thinking right, Dan. It sounds like it's going to be a cool project. Please send some pictures in. I want to see this thing. Okay, this question comes from Brian. Brian says, hey, Stacey, years ago on trucks, you built a Dakota RT with a supercharger and a lot of go-fast goodies. Oh, man. Yeah, we're going back now. Yeah, that was a long time ago. That was an awesome little build. That was a hot truck. He says, could you please give me a parts list of stuff that you did to it and anything that I would need to build a similar setup for a 2000 Durango with a 5.9? Well, I tell you what, Brian, there was basically, if you go to ProCharger, you can put a supercharger on that thing. It was basic suspension stuff. I don't remember all the specifics on it right now. But what I would recommend today, that was state of the art back then. These Dakotas and these Durangos are perfect for a modern HEMI swap. And it just happens that Holly has pretty much gone through and come up with all of the parts that you need to drop a third-generation HEMI into one of those Durangos. And I tell you what, that is a monster thing. The problem with the 5.9s, for those of you that don't know, it's the 318 and the 360 Dodge engines. There's just not a lot of aftermarket for them anymore. It's all gone to the HEMI. The problem with the third generation HEMI is that there haven't been a lot of kits available and motor mounts and things to drop them into earlier vehicles like there has been with the LS or the Coyote. Dodge has always been a little difficult to deal with that stuff. They weren't real forthcoming with their tuning stuff and that kind of things. Well, now I just did this. Of course, I did it on a Ram truck, but Skog & Dickey has now got a new HEMI engine that you can buy. They've got a cam upgrade. We just did it on the show. Man, that's the way I'd go. I'd pull that 5.9 out of there and I'd put a HEMI in there. If you don't go crazy, if you don't have to have a Hellcat engine or anything like that, this is actually a pretty affordable swap. Now, keep in mind, when you do a swap like this, you need motor mounts, you need exhaust, you need cooling system, you need a computer, you need a lot. All this stuff is available from Holly and other vendors, but it does add up. So keep that in mind. But honestly, if you put a supercharger on your 5.9 and you upgrade the exhaust system like we did and do all the things that I did to that on trucks back in the day, you're going to be in a similar price point. And trust me, you're going to have a far better setup if you got a HEMI in that thing. So that's what I would suggest that you do. Go to Holly's website and check out their HEMI swap parts. And they've got all this stuff, especially for the Durango and also the Dakota. So you're in luck on that. And then, of course, like I said, Skog & Dickey's got an engine. And I think that thing was about $8,000 for a 500-horse engine. I mean, that's a deal. Check it out. I hope this helps. You could go either way. Like I said, if you're just bound and determined to stick with the 5.9, there's stuff out there still, but it's pricey. And you're going to have to really search for it. So hopefully this helps. I personally, like you, Brian, I love those Dakotas and the Durangos. I thought it was one of the best looking body styles that Dodge ever did. So you're going down the right path there. Good luck to you on it. All right, that's our show for today, which means you need to get out there and start working on something. Spend some time turning wrenches. You might be surprised how much you like it. Make sure you check out our website, staceydavid.com, because we've got all kinds of new products and some other great stuff that you're just going to love. Also, make sure to check out our social media. That's Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, all at Official Stacey David. Our social media is where you're going to find all of the bonus content, the giveaways, the contests, the trivia. We even have extra viewer projects that focus on what you are working on. Also, the new season of Gears will be on MAV TV, and YouTube will be the place that you can view all of your favorite Gears episodes, as well as the full project builds that follow the project from beginning to end. Make sure to check out our new Gears coffee cars. This is a unique blend of coffee and cool stickers to collect that will appeal to anyone. But the most important thing is get out there and turn some wrenches yourself. Get a project, start working on it, and if you don't have tools, check out Cornwell. They can help you out there. All right, that's all the announcements. We're all up to date. We'll see you next time.